How's it going, everyone? Welcome, Eulier Gonzalez here. And today, let's take a look now at the React course from Josh Comeo as a way to master what React is at the end of the day and what you need or I need to describe and implement a feature or solve a particular problem. I know what I need to do, okay? Because I know in deep how this tool works. So, to make a quick recap of how do we get here is by starting to look at the React in this particular course and how this is made of in two models or in two package, right? The first is talking about is the CSS for JavaScript developers, and this is now look at the React, the historical reasons of how do we get here, and then we can get a sense of why we're doing this kind of stuff, right? So because of this, and since I would like to make a quick recap of this CSS course, especially to understand now, well, as I mentioned before, how do we get here? But there is a particular concept from Josh Comeo as well as a white paper that describe that one of the best things to learn something, and this is based on my experience as well, is that when you have to do this interleaving or blocking section, okay, it is important to combine those. In my case, I have done that in a way quite similar to actually understand is the relationship that this content has for other concepts related to the same field or in other fields. So this is a way to actually sort of speaking connecting the dots here, and that's exactly the point of this quick recap. So I look to I begin to look at the CSS and what CSS, right? So what is CSS? The introduction of CSS based on MDN docs, where they say is, well, describing is what this CSS is all about, is cascading style sheets and how you can now add styles, whether it is adding external style sheets or internal style sheets or inline styles, the way of how you can pick an element and to apply those rules, and you also have selectors, not only selectors like pseudo element or pseudo class, but also is the state-based selectors, which is something that is pseudo class and state in pseudo elements. Also the combinators, okay, and now the part of the anatomy of the CSS, which is made of functions. So for example, like HSL, like background color, is the HSL, the calc, the cramp, as well as other functions. The add rule that describes is how CSS should behave when applying this particular rules, whether it is keyframe or media query or layer or import, all right? So the other is the comments as well as the shorthand property. This is just a huge overview of the CSS. And then what are the things that are still relevant from all of that in 2025? First is to understand what a CSS, what is a rule, what is a declaration, and then what is a unit, a value, and then look at the most common rules that we still using. Besides that, it has been implemented quite long, it has been implemented uh, uh, hmm, yeah, it has been implemented a while ago, all right? Now, this is, well, the media query. Why do we even care about media query? The specific selectors. So, for example, how you can pick an element and a tag and class, and the difference of doing that, as well as the state-based selector, the most common state-based selectors. So, for example, the pseudo classes like the hover, focus, check, first on last element, first on last end type, all right. And why this is important? Why specifically focus is still relevant in today's era, especially because this is something that is widely used to guarantee is this WAC. Yeah, to guarantee is this the web content accessibility guidelines 2.1, where it follows now for principles, which is this must be perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. So also we look at what is the common combinators that we need to use. So for example, the selector combinator, uh, whether it's the child descendant or the next to sibling, uh, or the next child. So then we describe about it, the color. What is the color formats? So keyword, hexadecimal. Yeah, keyword, hexadecimal. The RGB, and why we're using now HSL, because it's way much more relevant and important, all right? As well as the units. So for example, like rem or m and percentage. And for example, when we use m and rem, what is the difference between them? So m is focuses on the font size of the current element, whereas root m is the value is the font size of the HTML element, right? The root element. And why we here use now percentage to describe that rather than pixels. And this percentage is something that we're gonna see that later, to calculate the height as well as the aspect ratio. And also the typography, which is what is a font family. It's a character sets that contains is, for example, in the case of Roboto, is six variants, right? So you have now 6 font weight and 2 text formatting. And why this is important? Because if you, for example, wants to provide a particular user experience, so for example, you want to make your users now read this content and be able to read the content, you will prefer to use now a serif font font family rather than or sans serif font rather than a sans font. And what is the difference between them? And especially when you want to provide a unique experience in your web app, you want to now create your own built-in font, whether it's you design that in-house or you use now some of those that are available on the web. So for example, for Google fonts, this is known as web fonts, and how you can make use of them. So for example, it's like now importing that fonts and then make available at the font family, all right? That's one way you can do this. So the idea of this is to be able to describe also the different the anatomy of the typography, the font family, the web font, the type formattings that exist. So for example, like bold, italic, uh, bold, italic, and underline text, and the text alignment, text spacing, um, and text formatting. Okay, so all of this is just the basics of the CSS that I mentioned that are relevant in 2025. And here with React, we all start by describing is where it come from. Okay, so what was the problem that React aims to solve? And because Facebook back in 2011, I think it is right. Back in, okay, in the early 2010s, almost 15 years ago. Oh my God! In the early 2000, Jesus, holy moly. Um, all right. In the early 2010s, Facebook engineering had a problem. So where they have thousands of people were complaining about a particular feature of their message. So a notification or a batch notification show them there, but when the user click there to see their new message, they don't have any new message in there. So this particular problem that pop up every time that they have not only to solve new features or bug fix, uh, but this recurring problem that is like whack-a-mole, playing like a whack-a-mole, a division in the Facebook, they have developed this internal tool called React. So what happened is that because they have now different states that are common in each individual views. So they have now the widget, they have now the message drawer, as well as the main view, because each one of those view has an state that is not sync, and this was a problem in how you can now sync all of this state in there. And when I make a quick recap of how you can now make different JavaScript files to act like a single program, is because you're now going to share a particularly, so you now have access to a particularly global namespace, right? So you can have access to variables in the global namespace. So this is the way of how you can actually make different files in JavaScript act like a single program at runtime. Why this is important? Because if you want to now build different user interfaces and you want to sync all of them, you want to have now a centralized place that is managing that state that is being shared across all of those instances, all of those views. So by the time that state updates, now you're going to reflect in each of those components. So because these components can have now this separate JavaScript files, can live in it separate JavaScript files, they must share something in common. In this case is React, this particular state. So this was the revolution of React, because we don't have any idea back then how you can now sync of that. So the TLDR is that with React, we can now sync our state with the UI across different UI. So this is the magic of this, or the magic of this. And because right now here in 2025 we're looking is at the React 19, and what are the main advancements in things that has changed. We can say that it is based on three main buckets. So it has been more improvement in tweaks, the stabilization of the server component, and now the introduction of the actions API. So all of this because the community till the until the community hasn't adopt each one of them, all right, we're still in a wait and see, all right. So this stabilization of the server component is that now you can make is, well, use of this server component where they don't have any JavaScript logic. And this is go beyond the scope of today's video, but I just wanted to quickly mention that. And the other is the introduction of actions, which is an API of how you can now handle is form. All right, it's an alternative of way to handle now form. So again, because these features are still now not widely adopted by the community, for us is a wait and see. That's what it is. So, and also we're gonna see is next 16, which is something that I actually have looked over the couple years, and so on and so forth. And I really love to make this segue here because that's exactly what I would like to do in this video, right? And that is, well, let's make this, okay? Let's make this, yep. Let's make this, you can say, hey, of the React. You can say is now the joy of React. Notes, all right. And I want to make something here. I want to is copy whatever I have on the CSS, okay, to the joy of React nodes, right? JavaScript is a directory. It's a directory, not copy. So how can I actually copy that? You can say parent. Well, give me a help here. Source files and target file, or source files and target directory. Can I? All right. So how can I copy files in Mac from terminal? Doing that recursively. Okay. Doing that recursively. So it might take a while because it is copying all of those files and also including, oh no, wait. let me remove in a recursive force way the no model right now. Chill, bro. Okay, and then let me actually is here copy all of those files. That's right. Now that I have this and also the joy of React, I want to now git init. Okay, so initialize now this repo. Here there is no log. Exactly, they don't have any commit for that. And then now let me open that with winsurf. Winsurf? Exactly. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what I want to do is to move all files inside a folder to a current folder. Exactly. Move everything including subdirectories here. Or simply this. Using now a regular expression here. I can say, hey, move. Yeah, because what I'm doing here is this, my fellas. So what I'm doing here is this, my fellas. No, it's not. Is this one? Exactly. So what I'm doing here is just to creating is this another repo for that. It's cloning that. Move whatever you have that there, whatever you have in the CSS folder, and provide now a regular expression tokenize. All right. Okay. If you want to see what's being moved, verbose. You can also say something like this and move everything here, and I want to show me what you're moving, all right, to this directory. Right, that was blazing fast. As you can see, we all have this, and we can get rid of that folder. Exactly, which is remove in recursive force way CSS for that. And now we're ready to get this. Okay, good. Now, I think that's quite interesting. That's quite powerful. All right, and because, well, we can now, we can now. Okay. We say git log, we don't have any log, which is great. If I inspect the git file, I shouldn't have anything there for that, only that. So you have a clean working directory, which is good. And I want to open that here. Okay. Awesome. Let me in fact change this a little bit. Okay. and say something like this. Yeah, and say something like this, which is reference. Oh, it's pointing me that to the reference. Oh, that's interesting. And that is the okay. What is this? Okay. Okay. So now we are. Now let me is here and say open, which is this. All right. Here we are. Right. Da 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 da. In this case is the joy of. We can actually do something interesting here, because now I download is claw, all right. So with claw we can say is this. Hey claw, please. Let's going to now do something interesting here. Hey claws, do you trust the file in this folder? Yes, I do. Hey claw, claw code extension installing VS Code. To launch code, press Command Escape to launch claw. Command Escape to launch claw. Wait, what? Well, I need to create is the git ignore. I didn't create the git ignore. Oh, I didn't pull the git ignore. Okay, okay. So let me pull the git ignore here as well. From, or in other words, I can say this. Say move. Alright, so move. How do you call it? Move this particular file that lives here, which is the git ignore. Oh, I need to also fetch some of okay. Okay. Let me actually is copy in a recursive way wherever you have inside of the CSS, including is the including is the files here, the hidden files, and I want you to do that, and I want you to make it in copy here. Too many arguments, it says. Okay, I get it. Because I'm telling is copy. Jesus is copy this. Alright, now we already get is the, and also is the sum of them. I want to remove this, right? The no model, okay? And we already get the git ignore. So please be my guest, git ignore. So in other words, let me now reload this. What if I reset here? Restart to update. Okay. Let me restart to update. I think that's supposed to be something automatically. That's right. Okay. And there you got it. So let me see. We can have all of this. You're gonna read that later, but what I care here is this. Okay. Absolutely. This is interesting. So we already have is the environment variable for production. And there you go. All right, so we're going to reset now the git. Okay, cool. Reinitializing git log. We already have this, but I want to clean the history of git. All right. I want to clean the git history. One way to clean that is to remove the file, get rid of all of that, and then recreate a new one. Okay. Which is what we're gonna do. Remove in a recursive force way is the git here. Not only the folders inside of that. Yes, I do, my friend. Now I don't have that. Now I can git init a new one, right? And that'll be all. Okay. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. Okay, now I can make this and say, hey, this is the git add, so we can add all of them. So I want to add all of those files. All right. So add all of those files, including hidden files as well. Exactly like git ignore, that kind of stuff. It's not including is it's not including is hidden files like claw or environment variables, which is a smart move. It is a smart move. You say git status, you can say all of the file that it adds. It adds the git ignore and the prettier, but it doesn't add the environment variables. I think it's because they fixed that. You know, I think it's because they fixed that in Git. They say, hey, this is problematic. Let's not going to upload all of this. So here we're gonna create our first commit. Okay, and say this is the first commit. And just to recap what a commit is doing, which is, let's going to take a look at what the Git folder contains. All right. Now, as you can see here, you have all of the different objects, which is something that we don't have that. If you want to see the commit, we can do using git log one line or we can just simply say git log pretty, I think it's this. Yeah, I think it's this. Short, exactly. And we only have one commit. So if we want to know what this commit contains, 3, 6, the first 7 elements actually is describing that, all right? So you can say, hey, through the git cat file, we can pass now a parameters to say, hey, I want the output to be prettier, okay? And then you define is the commit. It's gonna tell you the data that is inside of that commit. Since this is the first commit, it doesn't have any parent, as you can see. It only have now this, all right? And well, we can say, hey, this particular hash that we have here, what it contains is 2, right? What is the first 7 characters? What this file contains, all right? Cat file, the same prettier version. And as you can see, this actually contains the entire state of those of our application, and it does that in the most memory perform efficient way. A further in depth in that is, if you want to look at how the things work, that's up to you. But again, the idea of this is to actually see now what is doing behind the scenes and what actually represent each individual commits. And those commits is, oh, now what it means is I hold the completely state of your applications that you can recreate from. Pretty cool stuff, bro. Pretty cool stuff, man. pretty cool stuff. There's some folders, and anytime that you see a tree, it means that it is a folder that is inside of that, all right? And if you want to see, for example, the content of this, all right, what this blob means, which is binary large object, this is the format in which how it saved this, all right? We can actually ask Claw about this, right? So what is the, what? So when I do a git cat file of a commit, I get this, right? This is this. What the blob mean? So blob is a special way, is a special format of how you can store is large objects there. Exactly. Object types is a binary large object, and is a blob keyword. So blob is especially is the object type that store file content. The object type. The SHA-1's hash identify the specific version of the file content. Interesting. The SHA-1 hash of the file contents. Git store the actual file data in the blob object. But what is a blob object, right? So what is a blob? What is a blob object? Is one of the Git core data structure that store the raw content of the file in your repository. The actual file content, text, binary, and data, and only the content, not file name, not directory, path, no metadata, compressed using zlib. Again, is one of the Git core data structure that store raw content of file in your repository. How blob works, all right? So this is a internal representation of how Git store the data, okay? So how does this blob data structure looks like? All right. A blob object contains is the header and the content. And this is the header format and complete structure. The breakdown for a file containing hello world. So it's a type identifier, size of a string, null terminator, and actual content. Okay, let's get into this, fellas. Memory representation. So this Git object is made of a hash and the compressed data. That's interesting. And the compressed data. That's interesting. So this is the memory representation of that. So for example, the memory representation of that is that it contains is the which is the Git object database, all right? It is a hash and the compressed data. So if you want to inspect that, git cat file this, but I want you to prettify please this actually store is the content of the file. So we're quite familiar with this, right? We are very, very quite familiar with it. We can also inspect another one, let's say, is the prettier, right? 3, 6, 7. And this is what prettier is. As you can see, it actually adds some special character to identify that this is the end of the line, right? We can inspect now, for example, is a JSON file, right? The component JSON file, where this particular hash is this 3, 6, 7, right? And splice now, inspect that. And as you can see, it's going to add now this particular special character here. So again, this is not a course of Git, but I just wanted to describe that and how it works, what is possible to do that, because with that foundation now Git allows us to manage different branch, or aka is different workflow. So for example, when you need to merge, what the merge is doing, or when you need to rebase, what the rebase is doing, right? So in any case, but yes, all right, it makes a lot of sense. And we want to now change some of the content here. Why is that? Because this is now the joy of React. So the joy of React nodes, right? I want to make this distinction clear. So the joy of React nodes, that's right. The intention of this repo is to act as a personal note-taking app from the course of Josh Komewa, and in this case is the the joy of React. Mm-hmm. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. Okay, good. Did you got it? And I want to do this. Exactly. So personal notes. So now the personal note is this. Okay. Exactly. And the YouTube video recording process, which is what is a playlist? This one. How's it going, everyone? Welcome. Euler Gonzalez here. And today, let's go to now continue to explore is the model one of this course. Is this one? All right, and the tools used and thanks to Vercel. Right. This is the only nodes that I want to change, as well as now run this project, but I need to install this because it's this. I'm not sure why this actually doesn't update the current version. Nothing to stop, no service running for the store, no location of the current running, no location of the currently running PMP differs from location where PMP will be installed. Already up to date. Yeah, but I have okay. This is a great moment because I want to ask now Claude to this. But first, uh, why did you change that? It's to me it's mind blowing. I don't need you to change that. All right. In fact, let me do something here. Let me remove the file where I have all of the Git object. Okay. And in fact, let me now create a git init file again. I don't want to include that ds file that I saw there. Okay, didn't include that. Okay, and I want to make is here. Okay, git log, I don't have that, and git commit is this. Now first commit, but before doing this commit, I want to is run the pmp install. Okay, that's right. Run the pmp install. All right. And pmp run def. Right. So if I go here, I just want to look at that. It's not here. It's this one. And there you got it. So I want to change a couple things here. So for example is the metadata here that we have on the layout here. Exactly, the metadata here that come from the translation here. Alright, and this metadata is something that comes here and say logout namespace metadata. I must have stored that here somehow in the metadata. And here we're gonna change that and say the joy of React, right? So the personal note as well. Alright. Now this particular models, of course, is quite different. Okay. Because exactly. So if we change that to Spanish, it's not changed properly. And I want to change that because that's not what the content is all about. Okay. So that's not how the content is all about. Now, because I want to describe is the models so far, okay, which is the intro. More likely is to describe is what we're gonna do, and yada 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 yada. So the introduction state, all right. The other is the model 2, which is React fundamentals. Okay, so React fundamentals, and then the model, and in the next model, which is something that we didn't even reach, that is working with state, right? You say working with state. All right. Cool. Not only that, but then exactly fundamentos y and there you got it. Okay, so if we now navigate to there, we'll now be able to see that. Exactly. There you got it. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Now, this is something that we can save. All right. This is something that we can save. And let's get into this. Now we say, okay, let me actually save this entire workspace by putting that into the uh, working directory. This is I think this is a good invitation to understand now Git a little bit more, or to recap Git, okay? Especially when you're working. Yeah, especially when working with this, all right, of the Git. And now that we have these three different spaces, let me actually look at the Git docs to get a more accurate state of the affairs here. Okay. Give me a second, please. And we're back. Okay. So this is winsurf, but I want to show is here what I was doing, and I was just to describe briefly is the different stage that I'm working on, which is which is okay, exactly. So recording changes of the repository, getting a Git repository, which is okay. Follow me here a little bit. Okay, follow me here a little bit. I want to make a quick recap of the place what I'm working on, which is Git, and that is all right, and that is that once you set your Git repo to let now Git, hey, I want you to keep track of all of these files, and if I want to make that happen, or recording those changes, okay, there are now 4 places where the file can live. Okay, I want to read about this fairly quickly. So at this point, you should have a bona fide, bona fide, what? Bona fide. Why they call that? Bona fide, Git repository on your local machine. Bona fide. What bona fide means, bro? So bona fide definition. Bona fide. Really?
Bona fide.
Bona fide. neither specious nor counterfeit. Ah, bona fide means in good faith. Oh, in Latin, when applied to business deal and the like, it is a stress that absence of fraud or deception. Bona fide, in good faith, bona fide. In bona fide sales of security is an entirely above board transaction. Outside of the business and law, bona fide implies mere sincerity and earnestness. 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 A bona fide promise is one of the person who has every intentions of keeping it. Okay. In good faith, bona fide. Bona fide. Right? If you're in Spanish, you say bona fide. Okay, at this point, you should have a bona fide Git repository in your local machine and check out our working copy. All of these files in front of you, typically you will want to start making changes and committing snapshot. Start to making changes, which is exactly what we have already done, and committing snapshot of those changes into your repository. Each time the project reaches a state you want to record. Okay? So remember that each file, and give me a second please. And we're back. All right. Now, the idea here is to recap a little bit of the Git, what the Git is all about, and that's why we are here. And then we're going to actually move to what we really care on today's video. So remember that each file in your working directory can be in one of these two states, track or on track. So whether it is on track here and track. So track or on track. Okay. So track or on track. So track files are files that were in the last snapshot, aka in the last commit, as well as any newly staged files, and they can be on modify, or stage. In short, track files are files that Git knows about it, right? Track files are files that Git knows about it. So they can be in track files are files that were in the last snapshot, as well as any newly staged files. So they can be on modify, like this, modify, or stage, right? In short, track files are all files that Git knows about. On track files are everything else. Any files in your working directory that were not in your last snapshot and are not in your staging area, okay? Whether that is not in the staging area or in your last snapshot, okay? So when you first clone a repo, all of your files will be tracked and on modify, right? Because Git just checked them out and you haven't edited anything. As you edit files, Git seems that as modify, all right, because it's actually keeping track, and as you edit, as you change the state of those files, you save that. Because you have changed your last commit as your work, your selective stage, you selectively stage those modified files, and then commit all of those state change, and the cycle repeats. So Git's now going to detect all of the modified files, and it's up to you to now add all of them to a stage area. Okay. So when you add a file, it goes to this. When you edit a file, it goes to the modify stage, and then you stage the file. And when you remove a files from the modify, you do that. And when you commit from the stage area, all right, it goes through the unmodified state of that. So the life cycle of a status of your file. So this is what we briefly mentioned, or I want to briefly describe here, because um, mm, 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 since this is exactly what we want to do, this is the life cycle of our files. I want to follow me along here. All right. So this is the life cycle of the files. As you can see, we got all of these files, right? So all of these files, it is now on the on track files. You do remember that file, the on track files, and once you now modify some of them, so it only exists as two stages. Is on stage, on track, and track. And track is ensure uh, that that Git knows about its existence, right? So that Git is recording those stages. In this track stage, you have now the unmodified files, which in this case doesn't fit. All right. You have now the unmodified files. A good example. This is not only unmodified. This is unique files. I think it is. When they add this U, or the on track. Okay. All of this now live in the on track file. All right. So when you, for example, now add those to a stage, all right, and by add all of those to a stage is by saying, hey, I want to add all of them to a stage, you know, now they are in this stage, or added to the index. Okay, so all of them has been added to the index, except of course we don't model, but all of them has been added to the index. All right. Why it is not? Interesting. I want to also add this, the git add next env dts. Oh, I get it. Okay, so they are not relevant. That's interesting. So yeah. But again, this is the life cycle of the file of a file. It is only on track, and once you now add to the index, which is here, added to the index, you have now in the stage area. All right. And once you commit those changes, let me see, staging modifying, show status. We can also get a show status, get status that's show, okay, which is good. It's telling you where all of, I think I love this show, bro. I think I love this show. You can say get status. Also, this is another way of how it actually can get that, and it's telling you that this now, when you see this, is added to the index. This is another way. A is another way to say that, ensure. You can add in this a git ignore file. And again, all of this, what we're doing is just passing file from the stage to the on track, or the on track to a stage. All right. And that's interesting. That's very, very interesting. So what happens when you commit here? Okay, committing your change. Now that your staging area is set up the way you want it, you can commit your changes. Remember that anything that is still on stage, any file you have created or modified, you haven't pulled, you haven't run, git add or since edit them, won't go into this commit. They will stay as modified file on your disk in this case. And let's say the last time you ran git status, you saw that everything was staged, so you were ready to commit your change. So a good example of this is like, let's say that you add that file, and for some reason we do is this, right? So if you all right, so as you can see, this now is entering into the modified, all right? It's not stage, it's modify. It's now in the realm of track files, all right? It's now in this two stage of the Git, whether it's on track or track, and if it's inside of the track, it say, hey, it can be now on modify, all right, which is something that we're going to see that. So on modify or now stage. The stage is added to the index. So if you go back here, right, and we're going to see that now is added to the stage. Good, good, because this is what we want. Because this is the state of the application that we want to store here. This is the state of the application we want to store here. Okay, of course, actually failed. PNP run def. All right. And if we navigate to that, you can see this. There you got it. All right. Cool. Cool. All right. Now that we know this, okay. Now that we know this, just to recap that, I want to add all of those files, okay, to the stage area. There are, okay, all of them are added to the stage. And now I want to create a snapshot of the state of my application using now a commit message and say first commit, and there you got it, right? So far so good. It was not that hard. First commit was added here, and then you are able to see all of that. So yeah, that's just a quick recap of Git. All right, I think that's quite interesting to understand that. Mm-hmm. When you remove a file from the stage, you're saying, hey, I don't want you to keep track of that file. Mm-hmm. And if you want undoing things, okay. So on staging is On staging a stage file. On modifying a modifier file. On staging a stage file with git restore. Exactly. On staging a stage file with git restore. On modifying file, so I don't want you to add it to the snapshot. That's exactly what we're saying. Hey, on modifying a modified file, I don't want you to add to the stage file. All right, I want you to keep track, but not for the final snapshot, all right, of this. Git commit amen. Git commit amen. First commit, please enter the commit message for your change. Oh, grab. How do I get X? Chill, bro. Oh my god, no. Exactly, it's like how to exit from. Wow. Git status, git log, but we already have a commit here. But I want to do this commit amen. Abort. Delete it, exactly. And then if I want to get it here, I can say is WQ. And now that's interesting. So, but in any case, this is not a course about Git. This is a course about that. It makes sense. Okay. Now, so now that we are here, okay, the next is this one. So this is this area that we can have now, the on track, the stage, and the track. Okay. So now let's actually write it down about the introduction of this course. So I already have the intro here. Let's go to add some content here. Okay. There you got it. and let's now add some content here, right? So let's add some content here, shall we? So how can we add this content? Let me look at the Radix UI. Okay. The primitive. No, I mean it's this sha dnc. I already installed that, and I want to take a look at the component. All right. So we got a simple car, and as well as the Radix UI as well. The primitive. And there you got it, right? And the utilities here. Okay. All right. So right now we are showing is this in this fashion. Okay. I think that looks like good. That looks great. Okay. Let me now run this. Okay, and actually before doing anything else, I want to again keep it up. Yeah, keep it up with that. Remove this file. Define. I mean, it's the Git file, sorry. The Git folder. All right. And now Git status. I think I already add all of them. Exactly, I already added that. I can do something like this and say, hey, where are you? Git init. All right. So you want to keep track all of this. So this is not all on the on stage. So on track. I want to keep track of all of those files. Git status, add everything, including the hidden files. All right. Which is good. And now commit those message and say this is the and before that, my bad, I want to tell Claw, hey, I want you to init this. Say, I think it's init /init. So I'm telling Claw, hey, inspect my code base and somehow now run this and update the Claw M file. Overload error. What is that? Overload error. Okay, okay, no, no, chill, 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 chill. Hmm. Oh, I think it's because I already have that running, but it's in another instance. It's because I have that running in another instance. Might be that? No. Hmm. 529. I think this particular error is because I'm not authenticated. But it's not on the server. Oh, the server is overloaded. Okay. 70 hours ago. Ooh. Mm-hmm. Platform terminal version and feedback. Hmm. Overload. Platform Darwin. Platform. Hmm. I think Claw is that. They are hammering that, bro. They are hammering that. They are hammering that, bro. They are hammering that. Mm. Mm-hmm. And they scale massively, bro. And they scale massively. Mm-mm. Anyway, we don't have any aging here. Well, that's fine. Mm-hmm. Well, in any case, that's the great part of using your brain. That's the great thing of using your brain. Is that, well, it doesn't matter. We can now modify that. It'll be quite slow, but that doesn't stop us from doing it. We can actually is opting to not take that and say git add everything here except restore is now claw, because I don't want to take that file. Alright, I don't want to take that file. Git remove from the cache. Okay, say git remove from the cache of the file I want to get out of this. Oh, it's because is this get removed from the cache. So I want to pass and I want to remove this from that. Git status. Exactly. So I don't want to add you to that. Be in the on track. So now I want to put this on the on track file. That makes sense. And now let's take a look at this one. And say git commit with a message, right? Let's say, hey, this is officially the first commit once and for all. Okay, and that'll be all. Now, I want to now start with the introduction, which is git switch from main and create now a new branch of this introduction, which what you effectively are creating is now a reference of this. So you are creating is internally are creating is a reference to this commit, all right, where from this what you're gonna do is to now add more commits to that, which is in fact is effectively creating now a branch. So git switch -c, this is the introduction, all right, All right, in this introduction, we're gonna have something like this. And actually, let's go into develop what we are going to put in here. pnpn run dev, right? So this is background muted. I love to make this background here. I really love that background muted here completely, especially here on the children's, where it's gonna render all of this dynamic content, right? So we can wrap this and say, hey, all of the children will be live now here, right? So all of the children will now live is here. You just want flex, all right? So I want to all the elements now are into one, as it is. And here we are, right? So that's great. I want to actually say, because I think that it is adding some white padding here. I want to add that padding to that. I want to actually take all the available space from that. And then it's creating now a car from that, right? And they now create a car on top of this, right? So let's get into this. So here we are now is a particular car. Hover car. Wait, what? Oh, it okay. Hover car, collapsible dialog. And here we are creating is this. Getting started, accessibility and release, styling, animation, composite. No, pretty straightforward, pretty simple, pretty simple. A car. I don't have any car here. I don't believe it. What about the components? Do I have any car here? Breakroom calendar car. Exactly. Yep, that's what I want. You also have the typography here, which is good. The list, inline, small, muted, and all of this kind of stuff. Okay. But it is inside of a car. It is inside of a car. So let's take a look. Let's going to create our car here, and there you got it. And this is how can we import that. So let's actually use this. So I want you to render this car here. Okay. I want to help me to import all of this. And can you add import? I would like to prefer to use now here instead of code. I want to use this now cursor because it's way much more helpful when it comes to doing this out importing things like that, you know. Interesting. Exactly. and mock servers, and here we are. Okay. No, but it's because I need to shift to another one and say cd test cd the joy of React. Open up here with cursor, right, and there you got it. All right, and let's get into this. Yeah, I prefer to go here with cursor rather than here, because it's gonna help me here with auto completion and some other cool stuff that I want to do, especially with auto completion. It's because quite tedious to try to do that manually. It's like, no, I know what I have to do. I prefer to skip that job. Now, it's gonna open here now is cursor here with our notes, and there you got it. Okay, good. Now let's go into open up the content, the introduction page, and it's in here that I want to paste this, right? So here it say, hey, import all of that, right? Import all of that. It's quite also manual, right? Yeah, it's also quite manual. All of this import. Define or import it. I think it's because I think it's because when I paste this, there is no car action here. There is no car actions here. Exactly. Not at least in this component. So, okay. Car action from components UI. It says car action. But we already add this. The question is, do we need that? Do we need a car action? No, we don't. No, we don't. And that car action, I think, is this. So right now we don't need that. We just only need is that this actually looks like as expected, which is here, right? Exactly. But because I want to take all the available space here from this car, okay, I want to say now the entire car, all right, the entire width of the car. I can now add a class name and say, hey, the entire height will be full, right? So I want you to take all the available space in the height, right? So far so good. Also, perhaps we can say is, because we want us to add this muted, we can say, well, add some padding here or some margin to this content. Say margin in all directions, right? So we can now see is that tiny little margin here. We can do that with padding, but it won't work because it's just telling to the content to shrink. So in our case, that's what we are using is margin as it is, right? So far so good, because now let's actually describe is this. So describe is the content of this. So for that we need to go to this. Let's go with the English version here and describe what we want to mention here. Navigation title models here. During the navigation, the breadcrumb here, and here we can say is the content. Say this is the content, and here we say this will be now the model one. All right, say model one, and here we're gonna have is now the title. We have the title, which is the introduction. All right, it says it says this is the introduction. So the thing is that what we're gonna do here before doing anything, well, let's go into now is take a couple of snapshot of the project that we're gonna do. All right, take all of this particular snapshot of the project that we're gonna do here as it is. So describe this introduction and some of the project that we're going to build. All right. So for example, like this. So this is the title. This is the description. All right. This is the title, description. This is now the description. Okay, and here in the description we have this, right, followed by this. Okay, this is the description, and then we have now is the that's interesting. This is how you're going to organize the code here. Okay, the description, the counts that can trip people up, and this is description bullet, right? So again, before doing that, I want to define the structure of this. It means that this is how this code should look like, all right? This is not the structure of it. So we're going to define the title, the description, and in this case, when you have any type of bullets, all right? How can we describe this? We can say this as description types, or description bullets, or lists of island, description list items, all right, description lists. Okay, and here we can have is the title, is the description, if that exists, all right, or the elements in there, which is the list. And here we're gonna have is, just to keep it simple, this will be now is the description, right? Unidirectional flow. All right. another object. Because anytime you have now a element here, you want to add an ID to this. Okay, so let's going to start with this with 1. I think that's something that I'm gonna hate myself. All right, ID 1. Okay, ID 1. ID 2 and ID 3. All right. So when and why components re-renders, in grasping the mental model of the UI state, right? Good. We're going to interact with some exercise. So you have now this, followed by the subtitle, subtitle 1, which is this, and here we have now is or we can organize this by sections. I think that'll makes quite more sense. Okay, model 1 and the section, section introduction, and so on and so forth. This is another way you can organize this by section. I think that's it, because you can have now this section and this section and this another section and something like that. So we can organize this by section. All right, and this section will be is all of this, right? So one particular section. Okay, section 1, this is it. Then we have now the section 2. Exactly. And then we got now the section 2. Okay, this is the section 2. Section 2. And in the section 2, we're gonna have is the same quite structure, right? The idea here is to keep the structure here. Section 2, this is the title. You say, hey. So we're going to interact with some exercise. And here we can now show it's just a collection of image, right? The collections of image like this. And here we can say is the description. That is now we don't have anything here. The description list, which will hold now some images that I don't want to store that here. Okay. Here we say is image list. Title, the concept of the trick. And the URL and so on and so forth, right? To keep it simple, right? An image list, so you have now several URL here. Exactly, several URL here. and the another section which is called is the section 3. Okay, and here we're gonna call as the projects, right? Title 3 is projects. If we want to add some description to that, we can do that. Let's say description, right? But for now we don't have that. Similar for this, description, okay, about the project, and again some collections of this project that we're gonna do, right? Here this is called now image list about this. So this is now the introduction here. So let's actually I want to generate this page statically next, and therefore I want to now pull the data from the message. So I want to query the state that is responsible for the translation, which is in our case is use translation. All right, use translate. Okay, which is thanks to that we can actually make use of that, right? And we say, all right, so how can we have access to that, right? So for example, in the at the sidebar, how can we have access to that? And that is used based on this. So you import is the use translation. Okay, in our case we say, hey, on this page I want to import the enable static rendering for this locale. Okay, that's interesting. And I want to import is that state that is keep tracking of, please import from next internationalization, that's right. So I want you to instead of the navigation, what you to give me is now what is in the content. Okay, which is in the content here, especially model 1, and I can say content dot model 1. All right, and now my translation, okay, so I can query that state that the internationalization is keep track of that, and then and then have access to the data that I can get from. So in our case is this card title, card descriptions. So you got it. This is the card title. Here we say, hey, because I am the realm of GSX. This is how you can inject is GSX expressions and say, hey, I want you to evaluate this for me. Okay, I think it's this, but I want you to evaluate this for me. This is when TypeScript comes handy. All right, this is when TypeScript comes handy, and the way of how can I have access to that. Let me actually read about this. Use translation is this. But it's using the cons base, which use translation here. If no namespace is provided, all component messages are returned. The namespace that can also indicate nesting by using a dot for that. Translate message from the given message by using the UCI syntax. That's interesting. So now the using is the internationalize your web app on the client and the server. And it took no photos on July 15, 2025. Format GS is Tinder. Why not surprised for this? Trust by industry leaders. So this particular format, okay, internationalize your web app and client service. So this particular way, format is a set of libraries that help you set up internationalization in any project, whether it's React or not. So we install this, and then this is the minimal way of how you can do this. After following the step above, you should be able to get a minimal application running like this. Okay, so my message is now converted by that provider, okay, and allow me to access that by saying today it is date, and the output is this. Adding TypeScript for that. This is what we're using, all of this roll up, blah blah blah, yada yada yada. This is the application workflow. While our installation here, there's two types. The thing is, since application workflow with a local translation tool is source and this extracted the land. So the workflows say develop extraction from the translation editor and then save. You build and run the test. The workflow looks like this. Complex application workflow with a cloud-based translation service. Okay. With a cloud-based simple application workflow with a local translation tool. With a local translation tool or pipeline. A generic translation pipeline looks something like this. This is the code base, extraction from the CI/CD, upload message, translation vendor, and download translation, and so on and so forth. But again, format JS is internationalize your web app on the client and the server. There are even some polyfills to do this. It's because behind the scenes, one of our goals is to provide developers with access to the newest ECMAScript 42 internationalization API. Therefore, Format.js suite also provides multiple high-quality polyfill that are fully tested using the official ECMAScript conformant test suite. Our current list of polyfills include plural rules, list format, displayed, number format. Okay, it's now that you can have access to this internationalization API. Okay. All right. So Format.js is a way to, it's like a nice little wrapper of the internationalization API. It's a set of JavaScript libraries. It's a modular collection of JavaScript libraries for internationalization that are focused on formatting. Exactly, the focusing on internationalization, formatting numbers, dates, strings, and displaying to people. It includes a set of core library that builds on the JavaScript built-in industry-wide internationalization standard, plus a set of integration for common templates and components library. Exactly. Format.js is aligned with the ECMAScript internationalization API, Unicode CLDR, and UCI message syntax. Oh, I was not aware of this particular thing here. Okay, this is the UCI documentations. ICU user guide provides information of internationalization topics for which ECUI has services and includes details to go beyond C and C++ and Java API docs and avoid some duplication between them. This is the new home of the user guide since 2020 August. What is this? ECU Unicode Aura. ICE internationalization component for Unicode. Okay. Internationalization components for Unicode. ECUI update the CLDR 47 locale data with new locales. ECU 77 is most focused on bug fix, segmentation conformance, and other refinements. The technology preview implementation of CLDR message format 2.0 specification has been updated to incorporate some but not yet all of the CLDR 47 changes. Java more than C++. That's right. So what is ICU? ICU is a mature, widely used set of C and C++ and Java libraries providing Unicode and globalization support for software applications. Interesting. So this is now a set of libraries that come from C and C++ and Java to provide this, providing Unicode, this character set, all right, and globalization support for software application. So you want, okay. ICU is widely portable and give applications the same result of on platform between C and C++ and Java software. ICU is released under the non-restrictive open source license that is suitable for use with both commercial and software and with other open source or free software. Here's a few highlights of the server provided by ICU. Before that, but again, this is a set of library from C and C++ and Java providing Unicode and globalization support. I want to know about the detail of this. What does it mean? Code page conversion, convert text data or from Unicode and nearly any other character set or encoding. ICU conversion tables are based on the char set data collected by IBM over the course of many decades. Holy fuck. And it is most complete available anywhere. So code page conversion. So you're gonna convert the text data to or from Unicode. This Unicode has two planes. Has the basic multilingual character, all right, and the astral plane. Collation. Compare string according to the conventions and standards of a particular language. My question here is that is the internationalization actually follow this? Okay, comparing string according to the convention and the standard of a particular language, region, or country. Formatting. My question is the internationalization in Java's MD and Docs, is this internationalization based on that? See the internationalization page. In this article, we'll explore its features and provide a practical message of how it works. The Internationalization 18 system for extension use building with web extension API is similar to common JavaScript library for internationalization such as this. The example feature, the example extension feature in this article is available on GitHub for along with codes, source code, and go through the section below. So an internationalization extension can contain the same features as any other extension, background, script, and content. But this is the anatomy of internationalization extension. Extension root directory, you have their locales, which is exactly what the Next.js actually is using. The locale, you have that in English, in Deutsch, and among other languages. Okay, you have now the manifest, which describe is the metadata of those locale. All right. My JavaScript, which is JavaScript for retriever, browser, local specification message, etc. And the style, local dependent CSS. Providing localization string in locales. Okay, that's what they follow is the example of this. And this is exactly what we're doing. Again, but this is for browser extension. This is for browser extension. But my question is that is the internationalization here actually following that? Because this is this is browser extension. mm, mm. Okay, okay, okay. But again, the question remains. The question remains. The question remains. I know this is part of the web extensions, but the question remains. The question remains is because it's this one. Is the okay, this is a standard built-in objects. Exactly. So this is now part of the spec. So if you take a look now at the ECMA 262, right? And you look at the spec, let's gonna take a look at this spec. And you say now internationalization. I think internationalization, but I think is we wrote this like this as the object. Another way to look at this is by looking at the proposals. Oh, exactly. So they live inside of the language. Message format. So they live in exactly. So they are now part of the language, my friend. That's interesting. That's interesting. Internationalization locale proposal. Okay. But again, it lives in an entire separate thing. Okay. But this is quite interesting. This doesn't actually. This is a proposal, but how you can find that in the spec? All right. Exactly. ECMA standard built-in objects like this. The global objects. Okay, this is part of the global objects, fundamental objects. Okay. Property and object selector, functions objects, boolean object, symbols, error, numbers and dates. Okay, which is another object by 10 date objects as well, which is that's right. Text processing, regular, okay, text processing, and here enter is the string object and the regular expression, indexes collection, okay, key collections, what the French thought, structured data, okay, share managing memory, control app abstractions object, and here we got is the iterators and the generators, control abstract objects, and they don't mention anything related to that. You know, it's like so it seems that that is not part of the object. Ordinary yeah, it seems that they are not part of the object, ECMAScript function object. Yeah, it seems that that's not part of it. This is something that was defined. Standard built-in objects, but this is provided by the browser, similar like console, web API. But this is they say that this is now a standard built-in object. Can you take me to the spec here? Oh, there you got it. Uh-huh. Interesting. Okay. Uh-huh. The specification source can be found here. Okay. ECMA 402. Status, progress, and document. ECMAScript internationalization API specifications. Okay. Holy moly. Okay. ECMA 402. Okay, this is another standard. Okay, okay. ECMA standards. Oh my god. Okay. Jesus fucking Christ. Okay. Okay. Oh, my French toast guy. Okay, alright. But in our case, is universal 3D file format. All of these are the specifications for that. C# language specification. It's because the language specifications are found and developed by ECMA, the European Commission, the European Computer, I think it is the European Computer Manufacturing Association. A standard is a document that provides rules, guidelines, and characteristics for the results. Okay, so because ECMA, oh my god. Okay, so because ECMA here, exactly, because ECMA by category, acoustical emissions, data communications. Alright, okay. Holy fuck. Magnetic type. Holy fuck. Okay, so we getting too deep into this. There's nothing wrong with that. And then you got see software engineering interfaces. Software engineering interfaces. This is quite interesting. This is very, very revealing as well. ECMAScript 2025 language specifications. C#. And then you have now 402 ECMAScript 2025 internationalization API specification. An ECMAScript of this. Okay. So it is part of that ECMAScript specification suite and embedding system APIs. Can you open it? That was the last time that was updated. Okay, specification suite contains specification programming language as it requires and optional built-in libraries. Holy moly. TC39 commit. Exactly. The TC39 is okay. Interesting. Okay. Makes a lot of sense. Okay. So this is a different standard that is part of the ECMAScript, okay, the JavaScript, okay, which is the trademark. Holy fuck. Okay, you're not gonna find it because it lives in a separate standard. Okay. That's revealing. That's revealing, bro. That's very revealing. Makes a lot of sense. So internationalization, in fact, okay. You see, look at this. This internationalization API specification provides key language sensitive functionality as a complete ECMA 262. Its functionality has been selected from a well-established internationalization API, such as those Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Look at this. So it is functionality has been selected from that of well-established internationalization APIs, such as those of the internationalization component from Unicode library. So this of the net framework or of the Java platform. So this is where the internationalization comes from. It comes from a set of libraries that programming languages like Java or net frameworks. So, for example, IBM has now collected over decades, okay, to make the life or to make web applications, to make applications in general, to make software applications by providing this Unicode, by providing this multilingual characters, okay, and globalizations. What does it mean is that this ICU, which is a set of libraries that are from the exactly, it's a set of libraries from a well-established internationalization API. So they didn't invent anything here. They just now pour this to the web. That's interesting. That's interesting. That's also revealing, bro. Holy moly. Okay. All right. All right. Okay. Good. Good. Okay. So I think doing this is quite interesting. This particular project that I'm doing. Mm. So what I'm doing here in this project, I think it is quite revealing. I think it is quite revealing of understand where the internationalization actually came from by building something. Is by building something. Mhm. That is quite interesting. That's very revealing of where the internationalization actually come from. It comes from the need that IBM has for developing applications, software applications that now provide is Unicode support, which is this multilingual character set, as well as the astral plane, and also the globalizations, which means is particularly method that we do in our minds without even thinking about it. But in each one of those language, so for example, is that how do you soar in Latin alphabet, or in English, or in Deutsch, French, and Spanish, or perhaps in Pinyin, or in hand-based styles, or Japanese, um, or Mongolian, or in the Middle East, okay? How do you now define is the format of numbers in each one of those regions, all right? Time calculation, Unicode support, regular expressions, BD and text boundaries. Holy moly, this is where these are coming from. I get it. So the way of now the ICU, this internationalist, internationalization, but where does the name come from? ICU. Where ICU stand for, bro? Can you tell me what it is? The internationalization components for Unicode is a set of libraries and a way of Java and .NET applications work to provide this multi-character set or Unicode, as well as the globalizations. So behaviors like how do you sort, how do you sort, and how do you how do you sort, how do you sort words in a particular dictionary, right? English, Spanish, French, Deutsch, Finland, or even in the Slavic language, or hand-based style, or Chinese, or Pinyin, or in the Middle East. Also, how you can provide is now support for all of these different characters, aka the Unicode, as well as regular expression and formatting text for that. Holy moly, holy moly, bro! That's a very revealing, and they now say this is the way of how we do this. This is the way of how we format the things, right? Holy fuck! So JavaScript is like rediscovering. So JavaScript is like rediscovering. So JavaScript is like rediscovering that. JavaScript is like rediscovering the truth. Like, oh, that's interesting. Very, 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 very interesting. So, well, that'll be all for this video, and I think that was quite revealing. All right, absolutely, absolutely. That was quite revealing to understand where all of this come from, where this particular library sits on top of what, which is the internationalization, the ICU, the internationalization component, for Unicodes. Exactly. So to provide now support for Unicode, this multilingual character set, all right, whether it's on Latin, Slavic, Arabic, hand-based styles like Pinyin, all right, Mongolian, multilingual character set, as well as the globalization of that. Some behaviors in each one of those characters. So, for example, how do you sort elements in there? Mm-hmm. How you can provide now formatting exactly. How you can is compare and sorting elements in that language. All right. The collation. So the collation is the comparison. How you can compare words in that. How you can provide now how they define formats for dates or money. Interesting. Date. Interesting. Date times exactly. Date times currency. How now they calculate time. That's another mind-bending stuff. For example, Gregorian calendar, or those that go beyond that. For example, in the Arabic system or in the hand base. Okay, and also to provide now the character set for that. That's interesting. Is collation, is formatting, is time calculations, and Unicode support and regular expression, which is exactly what the API is doing. So the API sits on this well-known or well-established API. Okay, that IBM has collected over a many decades, bro. And you now think that no, IBM is sit on there. It's like no, IBM is sit on the dark. IBM is sit on the corner here because he knows that. I think that IBM is like that girl that is in the party, that is in that corner and say they don't know that I control everything. They think that Microsoft and Apple know stuff. I was the one who ended. I was the one who played with the Nazi, bro. And I went, and I went, and I went all my way in, bro. Yes. Holy moly, bro. Format JavaScript is a set of JavaScript libraries, which is interesting. So because all of this now sits on top of that well-established internationalization API, the ICU, the international component for Unicode, all right? Now that makes a lot of sense. And it makes a lot of sense that they now provide this kind of stuff. Developing with format.js. Okay. And because of that, all right, because we just asked the question of what is format.js in our code. What is format.js in our code, and how now the use translate message from the given namespace by using ICU. Okay, and they follow that particular format there as message declaration and message extractions, right? Especially they go into that and tell you that core concept ICU syntax, but I think they update that core concept message syntax, all right? Key type and form. And that's interesting. Basic internationalization principles. Locale region translation strings. And bundling translation string. Alright. Okay, so it comes from this. It has an excellent overview of that. What is internationalization? Why does it matter here? So that'll be all for this video. Take care. Bye bye.